Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Text 6, Text 33. Padbyam Bhagavato Jagye Sushrusha Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Sudro Yad Vritya Tusyate Hari Padbyam Bhagavato Jagye Sushrusha Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Sudro Yad Vritya Tusyate Hari Padbyam Bhagavato Jagye Sushrusha Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Sudro Yad Vritya Tusyate Hari. Someone else?
Padbyam Bhagavato Jagye Sushrusha Dharma Siddhaye Tasyam Jata Pura Sudro Vritya Tusyate Hari.
Padbyam, from the legs. Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead. Jagye, became manifested. Sushrusha, service. Dharma, occupational duty. Siddhaye, for the matter of. Tasyam, in that. Jata, being generated. Pura, formally. Sudra, the servitors. Yat Vritya, the occupation by which Tusyate, becomes satisfied. Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation. Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the Personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs of the Sudras who satisfy the Lord by service. Purport. Service is the real constitutional occupation of all living entities. The living entities are meant to render service to the Lord, and they can attain religious perfection by this service attitude. One cannot attain religious perfection simply by speculating to attain theoretical knowledge. The Jnani division of spiritualists go on speculating only to distinguish the soul from matter, but they have no information of the activities of the soul after being liberated by knowledge. It is said that persons who only mentally speculate to know things as they are, and who do not engage in their transcendental loving service of the Lord, are simply wasting their time. It is clearly said here that the principle of service was generated from the legs of the Lord for the sake of perfecting the religious process. By this, a transcendental service, but this transcendental service is different from the idea of service in the material world. In the material world, no one wants to be a servant, everyone wants to be the master, because false mastership is the basic disease of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul in the material world wants to lord it over others. Illusioned by the external energy of the Lord, he is forced to become a servant of the material world. That is the real position of the conditioned soul. The last snare of the illusory external energy is the conception of becoming one with the Lord, and due to this conception, the illusion soul remains in the bondage of material energy, falsely thinking himself a liberated soul and as good as Narayan. It is actually better to be a Sudra than to be a Brahmana and not develop the service attitude. because that attitude alone satisfies the Lord. Every living being, even if he be a Brahmana by qualification, must take to the transcendental service of the Lord. Both Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam support that this service attitude is the perfection of the living entity. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Sudra can perfect his occupational duties only by rendering service unto the Lord. A Brahman is supposed to know this fact due to his perfection in Vedic wisdom. The other sections are supposed to follow the direction of the Brahmana, Vaishnava, one who is a Brahmana by qualification and a Vaishnava by action. That will make the entire society perfect in regard to the order of its social construction. A disordered society cannot satisfy either the members of the society or the Lord. Even if one is not a perfect Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Sudra, but takes to the service of the Lord, not caring for the perfection of his social position, he becomes a perfect human being simply by developing the attitude of service to the Supreme Lord. Padbyam Bhagavato Yagye Sushusha Dharma Sidaye Tatsyam Jatapura Sudro Yadvritya Tusyate Hari. Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function, situated on the legs of the Shudras who satisfy the Lord by service. So, continuing on this chapter in the universal form of the Lord, symbolic in that of everything coming from that Vishwarup, signifies certain aspects excuse me, of life in the world and what the perfection of life in the world could be and really should be, because this process it was given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how to live in the world in a relatively peaceful way. At the end of the previous purport, Prabhupada mentioned that these Varna classifications and of course the ashram are essential for maintaining a peaceful human society. So yesterday's verse and purport, Prabhupada was describing the Vaishyas and the mercantile community working in different ways, and really he was stressing on the point that if it is not centered, if Krishna is not the center of all the activities, whether one is Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or here today Sudra, then the society will be misdirected, and he goes so far as to say they'll be disorderly society. There has to be a center, otherwise the lower modes of ignorance and passion, especially in the Kali Yuga, will become very prominent. And when there is mode of ignorance and passion, all sorts of disturbing consequences ensue. And Prabhupada mentioned about the Vaishyas, the mercantile community. They've got that nature for trade and agriculture and business. But if it is not centered on Krishna, then the Rajaguna, Tamaguna will come in strong, and then there'll be greed, there'll be anger, there'll be frustration, there'll be disturbance. And he did mention about huge industrial, what did he call it? Industry, artificial means of livelihood. There's large scale. He says that large scale industry is the source of all, especially is the source of all problems of society. He went so far as to say that, large scale. And we see that very much today. It has to be, in the Vedic times it was more centered regionally, like locally, on the village. Whatever you needed, and sometimes you would go afar every now and again to get what you didn't have or was brought in. But these days it's become such a global situation. Industry is global. And, if there's a problem in one area, it's a problem everywhere. Problem everywhere. Because it's supplied from some other part of the world. And these industries, whether it's government or whether it's a private, span the globe. And it's set up in such a way as to maximise the profit. It's really on the greed principle. The individual, the area where those things are produced, don't need such a massive scale of it, but somehow or other someone or a group of people have come up with the idea, let's make it a massive level thing, make huge factories and place them all over the world and produce so much of these things and mechanise the whole thing. With either machines or with technology. And Prabhupada actually, I remember one time he said that the modern advancement of society means that one man gets an idea, and by the organisation, by either through technology, he said the modern technology means one man makes something and puts 100 people out of work. That's the meaning of modern technology. That one man makes all the profit, and another 100 people are put out of work. I was just reading something the other day about so many people are going to be put out of work. It'll just come to my mind perhaps later on. But all this arrangement of globalization, why in some ways seems easier, but in other ways is very, very difficult. So as I said, and Prabhupada actually emphasises this point about too much greed and too much mass production of things, and it actually causes a lot of disturbance in society. Some people have a lot, and others have virtually hardly anything, just struggling to exist, while others are living in the lap of luxury. So this Vaishya tendency is strong to expand, and then you've got on the Kshatriya level, if there's not Krishna-centered, then Rajagun comes in, Tamagun comes in especially. Then to govern and administrate, to oversee, becomes more about power for the individual or the group of individuals dominating, and so we see that happening. And the Brahmanas are teaching, supposed to be teaching and educating. They'll become greedy, and that'll become corrupted. So also with the Sudras, in today's verse, Prabhupada is talking about the labourer class, very much needed in society. And besides the Varna and Ashram, we see these natural divisions in society, even outside of Varna, outside of the official system of the Vedic Varna and Ashram. We always see intellectual class, we always see administrative class, we always see the mercantile class, and we always see the labourer class. So all these are different, and this comes about by the mix of the modes of nature. Mode of goodness in Kali Yuga to a lesser degree, and we have passion and ignorance, especially very prominent. And so the labourer class is very much needed. With the Shudras, the labourers, if it wasn't for them, they do the construction, building construction, roads, all sorts of things that society absolutely needs to exist in a peaceful way. The water supply, who is it that works very hard to make all these things? The labourer class, and they're very, very good at it. They've got a nature to be like that. They're very, very good. Every one of us knows that sometimes we have some repair to do around the place. We're not very much suited. We're not very much, haven't got that nature. Haven't got the training to do that. And we try to do something, but maybe we make a whole mess of it all, or maybe it takes us like 1 week to do one thing. But if you get someone who is a tradesman, they can come in and they do it in 1 hour. Very quickly. I've observed that many times. You get there, you were trying to do it for like 2 days, and the tradesman comes in and does it in half an hour. Unbelievable. And I remember one time some devotees tried to do something and made a mess, and then they came in, the tradesmen came in, they said, "Oh, who was working on this before?" They made a mess of everything. Now we have to pull everything out and do the whole thing again. You see? So they've got the nature to do that type of thing. They're very much needed in society. So the legs, here it is said that from the Vishvarupa, the legs of the legs carry the body. Right? If you didn't have legs, it'd be very hard for the body to get around. So the legs carry the body. So you've got the mercantile, you've got the Kshatriya, the administrators, the intellectuals, all are needed. But also needed are the legs to carry everyone else. So this is much, Prabhupada does talk about the social aspect of that the labourers are serving in that sense. When you look at it in a holistic way, they're serving the others by carrying the rest of the body of society, by providing all the facilities. All the facility, the doctors and this and that and the other. They didn't have hospitals. Just yesterday we drove past the new Kingscliff Hospital that's coming up. So it's a huge thing coming up. So, all those tradesmen are in there working very hard. They're doing just a fabulous job of it. And so those who are teachers, those who are doctors and nurses and so on, if they didn't have that type of facility, then they couldn't do their work. They couldn't do their service. So all is very much needed. So Prabhupada talks on the social aspect of that, and he also talks on the higher spiritual principle of the service aspect, the seva. Seva is a concomitant factor of the Nitya Siddha. Prabhupada, in the lecture Prabhupada gave on Sunday, he was talking about Nitya Siddha, eternally liberated souls, and of course Nitya Bada means eternally conditioned. The conditioned soul, the serving others attitude is subjugated by the material mode of, especially mode of passion, and he is subjugated. And here Prabhupada points this out. He says generally on the material level, people don't like to serve. They like to tell others what to do. They like to be the masters. They like to be the boss. They don't like. But of course, in circumstances force us to work for someone else. You see, but inside, we're thinking that we want to be our own boss. We want to make, call all the shots. I think that yesterday Ikfaku made a good point about cooperation. Some people think cooperation means, that was a very good point I thought. He said, cooperation means I tell you to do something and you do it. That means you're cooperating. And people who want to be the boss, that's how they think. Oh, no, he's not cooperating, or she's not cooperating. I told them to do that, they didn't do it. They're not cooperating. Now, in one sense, that's true. They didn't cooperate with what you wanted to do. But cooperation in a more broader and on a higher level means that you work together, and not that one is necessarily in the superior position and the other in the inferior position. So, of course, everyone's got their place, and one should work according to their nature. But unfortunately, this principle of, Prabhupada calls it lording it over, and he mentions in the Bhagavad Gita in one purport, he says this, a lording it over principle, especially in the Kali Yuga, because of mode of passion, ignorance, very, very strong. Everyone's got it to a very extreme degree. There's lording it over. It's actually, he explains it to be a weakness of the heart. It's a weakness of the heart. The lording, it's a weakness actually, to control, to lord it over. It's actually a weakness because it's just unnatural, and it actually puts one in. It entangles one more and more in the material situation of life. So therefore, it's a very much weakness. So there's two things. There are two weaknesses of heart. Prabhupada explains. One is the lording it over, and the other's accumulating more and more. It's I, me, mine. Everything is just revolves around with me, my things, and what I can get more and more and more of. This is very much a materialistic conditioning. So everything revolves around you, and you see everything in relation to yourself. You're the center. And Prabhupada actually one time, or many times, he used to say, Krishna consciousness is very easy. You take you out of the center and you just put Krishna there, because that's just natural. Krishna is the center. Krishna doesn't have to try to be the center, he just is the center. If you have to try to be the center, you're not actually the center. People are always trying to be the center of everything. And I remember Banu Maharaj gave a good answer in regard to someone asked him about when Krishna in the spiritual, why does everyone just follow Krishna? Why does it have to be Krishna? Why is Krishna just the leader of everything? And he said that Krishna is the natural leader, just like in this world. There's always someone in the group who's very charismatic and everyone's very attracted to them, just naturally. They don't have to try. They've got so fabulous qualities and everyone's attracted to. They all want to hang out with this person. So whatever that one's doing, they want to do it too. They want to be with them. So there's always people like that. So you multiply that unlimitedly, that's Krishna. He doesn't try to attract. He just attracts everyone because of his unlimited qualities. So he's the natural leader. He doesn't have to try. So if someone's trying to be lording it over, trying to be the center of everything, and Prabhupada said this, I, me, my mind, accumulating more and more and more and more and more for me, that's another weakness of heart. And entangles one. Now, of course, this is all very frustrating, and Prabhupada makes a strong point here that when you get so frustrated, you become a little angry at the whole situation. You want to be the lord of everything. You want to call the shots. You want to be the boss, but somehow that's very frustrating. Then you maybe stumble across this idea of, well, maybe I can, transcend. If I just close my eyes and just think that I am one with the universe, I am one with God, then that solves the whole problem. Solves the whole problem. I don't have to battle it out with this one or that one or the other one. This one telling me this and I don't want to do it. I don't have to battle it out. I'm one. And why are you looking for God elsewhere? You are God. We're all God. I am God. So you don't have to worry about anything else. Solve the whole problem of existence. Unfortunately, even though you may be thinking like that, all these other things are still happening on you. And God, who was that Bhaktivinoda Thakur arrested one, who was it, Bishi Kishen, who was professing himself to be God, and he got the constables to round up God, and because he became corrupted and he was doing all sorts of naughty, and he rounded up God and he put him in a jail cell. And kept him there. So God was rounded up. But so we may think, but here Prabhupada says this is a last snare of Maya. Why? Because it's illusion. You may shut your eyes and think so many things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's all of a sudden come true. I shut my eyes, I think I'm floating away, I'm going to go to Hawaii. And I open my eyes and I'm not there. Nor will you probably maybe ever go there. Just because you think about something very strongly doesn't necessarily mean you've attained it. So one can think about being in the supreme position of godly or the supreme God or one with the universe and have all powers and all that, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So it's an illusion. It's an illusion. This whole thing is an illusion. And it's understandable in one way. People are very frustrated, and Krishna mentions it. Vita, Ragabhaya, Krodha, Manmaya, Pasrita. He mentions it. Says this frustration, this anger, and then you turn to these types of things. And so you get illusion. That's an illusion, and then you get delusional. The illusion leads to delusion. You delude yourself thinking in that way. And the real problem is the snare is that you don't think there's anything that needs to be done now as far as spiritual development, because you've attained the top. And that's unfortunate because you haven't. It's an illusion and you've deluded yourself. And just like in yesterday's class, it was mentioned that one has to follow the process, and Prabhupada mentions it here. The process, what does he say here? The process of religious perfection. The process, this Varnashram, he talks socially, is, if you follow everything. Now, how does it all work? You can follow your nature, but there are certain activities in that Varnashram. There's activities for the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Sudras, and whatever ashram you're in. And there is activities, there's festivals to go to, there's samskaras to perform. There's all sorts of things that everyone can attend. You can have it in your own home. You can do it individually. You can do it collectively. And it's the duty of the Brahmanas to teach about that, to give the knowledge about that type of thing. The Kshatriyas to organise it all, get everyone together. The Vaishyas to provide, the funds that are necessary to hold all these things. And the Sudras to build perhaps the facilities that are needed to perform these things. So therefore there's that centre there, and that's how it's connected to becoming spirituality. That's how it's connected to a process to making spiritual advancement. But if you just do your nature without that centre, without that spiritual process, you're going to be going all over the place because of your lower self, your conditioned self. I was talking about Nitya Siddha, liberated souls. Nitya, but a conditioned soul. We're conditioned by the Rajagun and Tamagun. So this is what's called the lower self. We're impelled to do things, perhaps just in a forcible way. Sometimes our emotions just drag us all over the place, even though our higher self knows that these are not the things to do, but somehow or other, as if by force we do it. And why did I do it? And you can't even believe it yourself, but you did it. Right? You can't even believe it yourself, but you did that thing. And why? Because this is the modes of passion and ignorance especially. You did that thing. So if you're not got that centre, if Krishna's not there in some way or other. So here, at New Govardhana, we're engaging directly in devotional service. We can come to the temple, chant, we can attend the Mangalarti. There's so many festivals, functions, there's so many samskaras, so many things. So whatever we're doing, you can do that. And it is said that the svadharma, the occupational activities, you do that to the best of your ability. But you don't think it's all in all. You just have to do what's necessary. But there's a centre there. There are so many things to attend. Now, the labourer class, they can go to a footy match or wherever they want to go, or they can or go to the pub, or they can come to the temple and run around and have kirtan. Or they can, instead of drinking beer, they can drink nectar offered to the deities. I remember one new bhakta was going out, and we were travelling around on the bus program, and he was going out on Sankara. He just joined up, and he was telling me when he came back, he said, I was going around trying to sell books, and I was going to this pub, and there was everyone was seated out. There was a real hot day, and everyone was drinking big jugs of beer, and he said, I was looking at that beer, because he said I was a real beer drinker before, and I was really looking at that beer, and it was a hot day, and I was really tempted to go over there and get myself a beer. But I didn't. He said, I came back here and had some nice nectar that was offered to Gauni time on the bus. So, and actually, I remember in the old days that when we were doing the Crossways in Melbourne, the Food for Life, there was a couple of guys that used to come in all the time, and they always used to ask for lassi, right? And they said that they really liked the lassi, and the lassi wasn't. In those days, they used to make it not so sweet; it had a more yogurty taste to it. And they told us that we're really into going to the pub, having a beer, and that. But we find when we come and have this lassi, that really takes down our mood for going to the pub and having beers. And so, and Prabhupada said that in Melbourne one time. He said that and Korma tells this story when he was making what was it, the curd sabji. He was making the curd sabji. He was making it over Meat Eater's Delight. Yeah, that's right. He made it over that he was staying in Brighton over at Ugrasava's place, and he made this preparation, and he said, this is Paniya Sabji. He said the meat eaters will like this sabji very much. It is Meat Eater's Delight. So when you can make nice prasadam, there's no need to go and slaughter so many animals and so on and so forth. And I was explaining, I was down at New Gokula, and then one of the workers there was asking about leather. Can devotees use leather? And I said, well, we can use leather, but the thing is, you don't kill the animals. You can just wait till they die, and then just like Lagudi here. I remember years ago, he used to go and not many devotees can do this type of thing, but he used to go and skin and we used to use the leather. He used to make leather products out of it. So you skin the animal after it's died, just wait till it died. And Prabhupada used to make this point that you can have the same amount of leather, just wait till they die first, and then if you want to have leather products and all these types, this is called ahimsa leather. I remember in the old days, at least, there was one shop down in Melbourne in one of the suburbs. It sold ahimsa leather. That means the animals were not killed, and you could get the leather, you could get their skins, and there were products made from that. So it's a different type of attitude you can have in regard to all these things. It's just a switch in attitude. You can do your activities, your occupation, just have that center of Krishna. You can see the devotees are living that life, but if you're living wherever you're living, you can do your work and just have that little bit of a center. And this is the Varnashram system. So this lording it over tendency, this accumulating just I, me, mine all the time, this will actually diminish. And Prabhupada says, is this seva attitude? Rendering service is very much stressed in, he makes this point, is very much stressed in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's very, very much stressed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And indeed, actually, it is said that when one takes up the devotional service to Krishna, then the conditioning is like a knot in the heart, in the knot. And that knot is very, very tight. But that knot is actually pierced. This verse here, Vidyate Hridaya Grantis, Hridaya Grantis means it's like a knot in the heart, and it can never be undone. But when you take up devotional service, what is the result? It is, these words are used here. It is Vidyate, Chidyante, and Chiyante in this verse from the Bhagavatam. I noted these words here because the Vidyate means the knot is pierced, and Chidyante means it's pierced and then cut to pieces, and Chiyante means it's just terminated. It's finished. The knot's gone. Terminated, cut to pieces, and pierced, cut to pieces, and terminated. Gone. You throw the pieces are thrown away. But you have to pierce it, then you cut it to bits, then you throw it away. So this is the result of engaging in devotional service. Now everyone has to serve something in the world. You always, but it should be done in a mood of service to Krishna and with love. With love. When you have love, then automatically that love and affection, you want to do things for others. It's just natural. If you actually love someone, you want to do things for them. It's very, if you have love for your husband, you have love for your wife, and your husband says, can you do this? Or the wife says, can you do that? If you have love, then yes, you'll gladly do it. But if, the wife says to us, can you do this? And the husband says, no. And the husband says to her, can you do that? No, do it yourself. And, there's not much affection there. But when you have actual love, I was just on the Ram Navami, I forget where I was, but I was giving the class, and I told the story of Hanuman. Now, Hanuman is very famous for being the servant of Lord Ram. When you go to Ayodhya, there's the Ram temple, and just before you get to the Ram temple, there's the Hanuman temple, very, very popular. Even some say even more popular than the Ram temple. And so many thousands and tens of thousands of pilgrims go there to Ayodhya, to Lord Ram's appearance place. And then, but before it is said that, but the tradition is before you go to Lord Ram, you have to please his great devotee Hanuman. And it's well known that Hanuman is very fond of sweets. So right outside the temple, there's just packed with sweet shops. Packed, yeah, there's no other shop practically, just sweet shops. And laglu and this and that and the other thing. And then you buy all these sweets, and there's so many people that's just like jam-packed when you try to get in there through the gate, and you can finally get in there. There's about like 10 or 12 priests up there just on the mandap, just taking everyone's offerings. There's that many people want to offer the sweets to Hanuman. There's a big deity of Hanuman there. And so they're just all day long taking everyone's sweets and offering to Hanuman. And then it is said, if you've got the blessings of Lord Hanuman, then very easily you'll get the blessings of Lord Ram. So I said that first of all you got Hanuman. And so Hanuman is very famous. He's got so much affection of rendering service to the Supreme Personality of God. He was always wanting to serve Lord Ram in any way. You know, he jumped across the ocean to Lanka just for Lord Ram. He didn't have to do any of these things. But earlier, long time before he was told by Lord Brahma that your Lord will appear and you should serve him, I told this story, how will I recognize him? Hanuman said. Hanuman is a very great Lord himself. He's not the Supreme Godhead, but he is very good. He's the Amsa of Lord Shiva and Parvati. There's a whole other story there, how Hanuman came into existence. But he told him that you will know him when he will come and he will be wearing a diamond necklace. All right, you wear this diamond necklace. This was the story. You wear this diamond necklace, and Lord Brahma gave me a diamond necklace, and so only your Lord will see it. No one else will see it. So then when Lord Ram and Lakshman came into that area of Bali Maharaj and Sugriva and everything like that, Hanuman was sent out to see who these two were. And he disguised himself as a beggar. And then he said that, you've come to this area, I'm a beggar here, and I just ask any pilgrims who come to this area to give some bakshish, to give a donation. He asked Lord Ram, can you give anything? And then Lord Ram said, well, what do you want? He said, well, that depends on who you are. You know, if you've a very high position, if you've got a lot of money, then I'll ask more. But if you're kind of poor, then I won't ask so much. Right? And then Lord Ram turned to Lakshman and he said, this beggar is very unusual. He's wearing a diamond necklace, and he's asking us for bakshish. And Lakshman said, I don't see a diamond necklace. And Hanuman said, oh, you don't see the diamond necklace? And Lakshman said, I don't see any. And he said to Lord Ram, you see? And I'm seeing, that's what I'm saying. He said, oh, here's my Lord. So then he bowed down before Lord Ram, I want to be your servant. And then the whole thing started out. Hanuman was the great servant of Lord Ram. He just any way. There's another story I told about one time back when they came back to Ayodhya, when Sita, Ram and Lakshman all come back to Ayodhya. They were seated there. Lord Ram was seated and there was some big function, and then Sita was a little bit late, so he sent Hanuman to get her. And she was putting on a sindhu, the red mark between the hair there. And Hanuman said, Lord Ram's waiting for you. They're waiting to start the ceremony, but you can't start unless you come. So she said, yes, just in a moment I'll come. And he said, what's that you're putting on your hair? And she wanted to get there real quick. She said, oh, Lord Ram likes this, so that's why I'm putting it there. So then she raced off. And then a few moments later, Hanuman comes in. He's just from head to toe covered in the sindhu. And you'll see when you go in India, the Hanuman temples, Hanuman, quite often you'll see him is orange. He's orange colour, and that means he's covered his whole body, and he came before. Everyone thought it was quite funny, but he just showed his affection to Lord Ram. So out of affection, we want to do so many things for someone. So when one engages in devotional service, that the pure heart of the living entity becomes strong. The knot, the chidyante, vidyante, pierced, cut to pieces, torn asunder, terminated, that knot in the heart. Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any question or comment in regard to today's verse? Yes.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for the class.
You're next.
Yesterday, the speaker was talking about cooperation, and you mentioned it again today, saying that cooperation can be misunderstood, that I'm telling someone to do something, and then
Good point.
they're doing what I'm telling them or not.
We're cooperating.
But playing devil's advocate here, there is a situation where leaders have to tell people that they have a duty of care to, or they're managing a temple. They have to say, okay, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, don't do this, don't do that. And then it's up to us to cooperate. Not that we go, no, I don't feel like doing it.
No, but it shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't be forced cooperation, demanding that you do it. And Prabhupada, there's one statement from Prabhupada where he said that the leaders can only be leaders if the followers agree to follow them. A leader can only be a leader if the followers agree to follow whoever it is. So, I mean, you can take the position of a leader, but if no one's going to follow you, what's the use of it? So, you can, you're in charge of this and that and the other, so you have to inform, well, this will be your service and this will be your service, but unless they do it willingly, then that's another thing. So that you can request them, and then they're cooperating with that request. But if you try to force it, and I think that's the point that was made, that if you try to force it, demand it, and hit them over the head with it, then that's another thing. That's a one-way street of cooperation. And Mataji had a question here.
It's a little bit like that saying, a man convinced against his will is
Of
honest.
the same opinion still, yeah. That's
I was reading Bhagavatam, how Hanuman was offered to go to, I think it's like I can't remember the detail, where he was offered to go to, but he said, no, I want to stay here, otherwise I won't have any service. They want to stay in the material world.
Yeah, well, there is an Ayodhya of the spiritual world. This is described in the Bhagavatam. That's just at the gateway of Dwarka and Mathura, and so it's right there, just before you get to the Krishna Loka. There's Ayodhya, and there Hanuman is existing there, and all the great personalities. And Prabhupada was saying in his lecture that when Lord Chaitanya came, all the eternal associates came with him. They are Nitya Siddhas. So all those great personalities have their position in the spiritual world. So they are there, and they are also here. So they're rendering service, but Hanuman may have said something like that. There's a little bit different service here, and he's also like a Chiranjeev. He comes and does that service many times that Lord Ram comes. So he likes that. So probably that's why he made that statement. All right. Yes, one last question.
I have two questions.
I think you only got time for one.
It was excellent class because there was a lot of points in there.
Just hold it.
Yeah, there was a lot of points in it that make you think. So I'm going to say the two questions, and you can choose how you answer it.
Okay.
First question is, you mentioned about the society is, one place is making things, and it's, buying something is turned internationally. So, where do we play in that as devotees? Do we just join in on that, or, do we become more self-sufficient just depending on what we got? My second question is about lording it over, and the person who's maybe getting lorded over, how did that...
It's on.
Anyhow, I've now got my question, but
About lording it over.
just the attitude of
The batteries.
The person who may be getting lorded over, how should they respond?
Well, I mean, in regard to lording it over, it's a certain attitude of lording it over. You know, it's like Krishna's the Lord, but that's on a spiritual platform. But lording it over, when it's mentioned there in the Shastras, mentioned there by Prabhupada, lording it over means dominating and controlling and exploiting them. So that type of lording it over is not, that's weakness of the heart and entangling it, and so on and so forth. So that we have to overcome, because all of us have got it, whether you're getting lorded over by someone else and you're also lording over another person. So everyone's doing it. And so it's that mentality of lording it over that has to be avoided, and only can be done through devotional service. In regard to the international, yes, well, I mean, Prabhupada wanted to preach to the leaders of society and try to get them to change all that, the greed mentality, everything more localized, so on and so forth. So we have to, there's nothing much we can do as far, not nothing much, but we can speak about that thing, but sometimes we're in a difficult situation. We have to rely on these things ourselves, just the way society's set up. But we got it in mind to try to produce things locally. That I think should be the attitude. Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.